As I record this, it's mid-June, and yesterday was June 13th, so it's June 14th now, absolutely mid-June. And I went to Concord High School's graduation, which of course evokes memories for me all the time. And then I went to a funeral. One of the first really good runners I coached, Rachel, her stepmom just died, Carol, and Carol was a wonderful human being. So I knew of Carol and who Carol was in the early years of her marriage to Tim and when Rachel was adjusting to two families. Of all the athletes I've coached, and there are hundreds, I have unique and special connections with every single one, some deeper than others, obviously. Rachel and I connected incredibly deeply, and looking back now, it was trauma that connected us, not necessarily sharing the same life experiences, but how to deal with feeling traumatized. Her stepmom, Carol, died from a long relationship with malignant melanoma, metastatic melanoma. And it was heart-wrenching. A year ago, just about a year ago exactly, they held a celebration of her life while she was alive. When she was at her sickest point, maybe 8 months prior to that, she said, look, let's do this while I'm alive. Don't wait until I'm dead to talk about me. I'd rather hear what people have to say and how have I affected people, and let's get together so I can be here with. So they did, and it was pretty wonderful. I was talking to the mom of another runner that I coached who was at the funeral, and we got talking about grief. She was mentioning that a couple of people at the funeral had just lost their spouses within the last couple of months. And she didn't know how people could come to funerals. And she looked at me and she said, yeah, I know that you know what I'm talking about. And she's right. It's hard when you've lost a child to be around a funeral. So it got me just thinking about spiritual things. And I had no idea what to talk about. I'm batch recording a bunch of podcast episodes because my editor's going on vacation. So I'm recording this in June. You're listening to it in mid to late July. But I turned around in my office feeling a bit befuddled and befunked, and I saw this book, 7 Lessons from Heaven. And I know I've read it because when I read the back of the cover, I remembered reading it. Mary Neal is a doctor, and she was kayaking one day, and she drowned. And she was under the water for a long time. She had broken legs. She was pinned under a kayak. She should not have lived, and the circumstances of her rescue to this day are puzzling and befuddle people. But she did. And a couple of things that she learned in her trip to heaven came true later on in her life. So she wrote a book, which of course makes sense. And in my conversation yesterday with Leanne about death, I said the one good thing about Molly's death is that I absolutely now believe in heaven. I believe that there is some tangible place we go, a reality beyond here. For 2 reasons. One, it's impossible for me to think Molly just doesn't exist. So to the atheists listening, I utterly respect you and your beliefs. But for me, impossible to think that she's just nothing. Number 2, I've had so many connections with her and messages from her that cannot be explained away by some fake medium trying to make money, that I know it's real. So this woman, Mary Neal, had the following things that she learned from her near-death experience. Part of me would love to have a near-death experience because I would love to maybe be with Molly for a little while, but I don't want to wish upon myself some horrifying accident that's going to alter my life. Her first lesson was God is always present and in control. That God has a specific plan for everyone and actively works to guide people back to that path. So whether or not you believe in God, sometimes I just call it the universe or universal energy. Too many things happen in a specific way with Molly that I feel like her death would have happened even if Kenny's and my marriage was completely solid, even if I wasn't in Amsterdam. I think that the circumstances around it might be different, but it still would have happened. I see that because the intricacy of things happening because it's part of my story, or me being a part of something that has nothing to do with me, it's someone else's story. It's hard to nail those things down, but I truly believe in what I've learned from grief and loss is that a lot of our lives are destiny. Number 2, divine love is unconditional and vast. So one of the biggest teachings in the Baha'i faith is love, the power of love. Love is the energy that binds the molecules of the universe together. So an energy, love, binds molecules, actual physical molecules together. Other people that have had near-death experiences often say that when they look back and look at like the earth as a whole, that you can hear the love buzzing, that you can see the connections of love and how really it all comes back to love. Of course, humans think of love as sex and romance and, oh, I love my boyfriend, and it transcends anything that you could apply your love to. It's just the feeling of love. Number 3, heaven is a real place. The afterlife is filled with angels, incredible light, and a loving, welcoming presence. So I choose to believe this, and those of you out there that have a very different set of beliefs, again, please I respect yours, and these are mine. I know that it's real. I know that there's a book in the faith called Closer Than Your Life Vein, and that's how close the spiritual world is to us. It's right here. I'm sitting in my office, but I'm probably surrounded by 100 gazillion souls who are all dancing around doing their thing, right? It's right here. We just can't see it. Number 4, beauty blossoms from loss. From the perspective of heaven, all circumstances, even our greatest grief or loss, eventually serve a greater purpose. And I think that right there is my biggest struggle in knowing what to do with Molly's death. How do I make it okay? How do I make something good about it? Giving away all the money from the lawsuit? I'm very, very attuned to the fact that I'm not managing and handling her money very well, and it hurts me. I'm missing the boat somehow. So beauty blossoms from loss. I have to start really looking at the beauty. Number 5, there is no fear in death. When trusting fully in God's promises, death is not something to be feared. I don't fear it for myself at all anymore because I'll get to see Molly. But I have little Jack, and so I know how devastating it would be for him to lose his mother, especially if he's super young. He's going to be relatively young anyway, I imagine. When I'm 100, he'll be 43, so not super, super young, but I'm planning to live until 100, by the way. So fear it? No, I'm not afraid of it in the way that some people are. It's not a random fear for me. Number 6, choosing absolute trust. Okay, this is a hard one for me because I typically choose to trust the wrong people. Living a joy-filled life requires developing an absolute, unwavering trust in God and his promises, which naturally melts away fear, worry, and regret. Okay, so trust in God. Well, if I ever really paid attention to what he was saying to me, I probably could trust him or her more. Hard to say. Complete trust is really difficult for me. It's never boded well for me. Yeah, choosing absolute trust. Unwavering trust in the universe, in God, in knowledge, and love. Number 7, finding joy in the everyday. Joy is easily accessible to everyone on earth once they recognize God's miracles in small details and anchor themselves in his love. Recognizing the small miracles. So when I look at these and think of everyday examples, like what example can Barb give to you of these 7 things? So God is always present and in control. The way that I feel that God or some universal energy is always present and in control is the quote-unquote coincidences that happen to me all the time. The lessons I realize I needed. The person I run into that I didn't know I needed to hear from. The little tidbits of information that fall into my lap. You know, I talked about that day that I was struggling, and every time I turned around, there was a Molly connection. My tattoo led to a discussion of the sticker on my water bottle, which led to my Aunt Sheila, which led to this student that I'd never met at a CrossFit gym knowing about Molly. I needed Molly that day. I cap out the day with B wearing his Molly shirt, and we ran into each other. So these are the times. I was having a really rough morning once, and I looked up at the moon. It was when the sun had risen, but the moon was still visible, and I'm like, oh, Molly, where are you, Molly? Where are you? And I turned onto Main Street behind a car that had a hashtag Heart Molly B bumper sticker on it. There are only like 3 of them in the entire city. I find that some people could just say that's dumb luck. To me, that's proof that God is always present and somehow in control. Divine love is unconditional and vast. I think the safest way for me to look at that in my practical life is through nature and the beauty of Earth and how we decimate the planet and still it thrives and continues to support life. I know that divine love is unconditional and vast when I look at a newborn baby, and there's nothing more perfect than a newborn baby. I look back on some of my memories in retrospect now, in hindsight. I look at my life as I'm hiking up the mountain towards heaven, right? And every time I turn around, I've lived a bit more life and I can see more. And I see divine and unconditional love all the time. Heaven is a real place. I guess the best way I know this is the connections I've had with Molly and with other people since Molly's death. One of my most recent readings, Kathleen Murphy, the superintendent who died almost a year ago, came through, and I was dumbfounded. The medium I go to described her flawlessly, perfect detail, gave me 2 or 3 things that she could not have known about my relationship with Kathleen. I don't talk about her. The messages that Kathleen had for me were so spot on to what I was going through. It was astounding. Astounding. She's somewhere, right? Beauty blossoms from loss. I think the beauty that I've gotten out of Molly's death is finding out amazing things about people. One of the Spirit of Molly B scholarship winners is a class valedictorian, and she gave this amazing speech at graduation, and she talked about the process through which she discovered that being told no was actually a pathway to her perfect yes. So disappointment after disappointment, loss after loss, frustration after frustration, finally gets 2 yeses to choose from and realizes these 2 schools were the 2 she was supposed to choose from, and she may never have even considered them had she been accepted to the places she thought she should go. Molly was always looking for the good and the bad, looking for the pretty and the ugly, looking at something that everyone else disgruntled and judged, and finding the good in it to prove them all wrong. Beauty blossoming from loss is just that. Jack is an incredible piece of beauty who wouldn't exist if Molly were alive. And that's a tricky one to wrap my head around sometimes. But the steps that brought me to Jack, I believe, were supposed to be part of my journey. And the connections that I had with doctors from losing baby Gordy, that baby Gordy and Jack are so connected is mind-boggling. There is no fear in death. I know this to be true, again, from hearing I was so afraid that Molly was afraid. And she had some anxiety initially when she was tied between 2 worlds. I had 3 different mediums go into unbelievable detail around the last moments of her death, her life into death. Papa Gordy and my dad, bio dad Tom, were both right there with her. She was fine. They explained it to her, they understood. And the job she took in her first moments in heaven were helping little kids that died that maybe didn't have people they knew on the other side to help make sure they felt okay. Some of the angel moms I've met are other examples of beauty in the loss and knowing that there's no fear in death. Our stories are so similar. The girl that gave the memory chair speech, another Spirit of Molly B Award scholarship winner, talked about the smile on her grandmother's face as she took her last breath and how wonderful it was to be a part of ushering someone into the next world. I think it's amazing. And then choosing absolute trust. I guess, I had to come home from the hospital. I had to leave my dead 13-year-old in a room. I had to leave her body behind to be handled by strangers. Knowing that, not even a week prior, she was alive and well. Knowing that on Saturday, April 30th, she was in a sun-filled yard having an ice cream and playing wiffle ball with Gracie and Kenny. Not knowing that, hey, 1 week from today, I'm going to be unplugged from life support and put into a cooler. I have to have absolute trust that somehow this is going to be okay. I have no other option. And then finding joy in the everyday. I think I've never had trouble with that, quite honestly. One of my favorite quotes is from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. The character is Chief. If you lose your laughter, you lose your footing. And that you have to be able to laugh. So many people the week that Molly was on life support couldn't wrap their head around the fact that I could laugh. How can you even be okay here? Well, because what's the option? To just not be okay? I wasn't okay at all. And being able to laugh and look at something and see that it's pretty and hear a quote or run into someone and know that this is a beautiful moment. Silver linings, right? I'm not a fan of that. Every gray cloud has a silver lining. I don't know. It makes me feel like we're supposed to be okay with the gray cloud. I will never be okay with Molly's death. But I will say that some of the things that have happened to me since her death and because her death happened have been life-changing. So, how do you do a podcast that you have no idea what you're going to say in 23 minutes by looking around your room? You have a bookcase behind you full of amazing books that you've read, and you see, 7 Lessons from Heaven. There's a well-planned out podcast, so I'm holding it up. The woman who wrote it is Mary C. Neal. If you've never read it and you are of a mind to ponder and contemplate what happens next, I would suggest you read it. It was an easy read. She's a good writer. It flowed well. It wasn't difficult. And you also should read my book, Motherland. If you haven't yet, Chip Chop, get on it. And if you have, Chip Chop and leave a review so more people can find it. Look at me doing a little selling at the end. So anyway, maybe I have to come up with my own 7 Lessons from Heaven. I haven't been there yet, so I suppose I'll have to think of a different title. As July marches on, I'm about to turn 63. We're about to head off to France to see Gracie again. Jack is about to head off to kindergarten somewhere. Track camp and the gala and musical theater camp are behind me as you hear this. Or I'm in the thick of it, perhaps. Do all of these things. Know that the universe and energy is in control. Know that divine love is in fact unconditional and vast. It is. We are loved. Know that heaven is real. That's another really good movie to watch, Heaven is Real. And I think it's a book. Beauty does blossom out of loss. Look at a forest fire, and it doesn't take long for beautiful wildflowers to grow amid the ashes of that forest. There is no fear in death. Once you're there, it's great. Choosing absolute trust in the divine nature of reality can't be a bad thing. And find joy in every day, in the everyday. All right, so be good to yourself. Be good to yourself. Be good to someone else. And as always, have a good day, everybody. Hey, thanks for listening and supporting the podcast. Feel free to leave a review and share my stories with your friends. Please reach out with your own stories, as I love connecting with my listeners. If you would like to get to know Molly, head over to mollybfoundation.org to see what she is all about. If you want to see what I'm up to next, you can find me on Instagram at barb_444. On Facebook as Barb Higgins, and at my website, 1000tinysteps.com. And while you're there, sign up for my newsletter, a weekly way to find out what's up in the life of Barb Higgins.